I'm Mike Costello, and I'm here today with Dr. Iris Freelander, and we'd like to talk to you about breaking the cycle of judgment. In New Thought metaphysical philosophy, we talk a lot about how important it is to be aware of the way that we think and the way that we feel in our lives, and giving up judgment really has the ability to transform our lives, doesn't it, Iris?
Yes, indeed it does. It makes our attitude toward life itself so very different. And also it helps with the attitude of others if we're positive and if we're non-judgmental. And to be fair to others, then we need to always be that way, don't we?
We do, and I think that very often we feel that we want to be fair and we want to be honest, and yet at the back of our fairness and honesty, we feel that people should be judged appropriately. And I'm reminded of, I think, the story that I've told so often in my lectures about the bishop who made the opening prayer at an event that I attended at one point in time, and he said, "Help us to even love our enemies after you've punished them appropriately." And we have this feeling that we need to be the guardians of good sometimes, or we need to be in control of people's behavior. But in fact, people behave in all kinds of ways, and circumstances, that's when we're talking about people, and events, world events and circumstances and situations are moving constantly. And if we guard within ourselves, this negative experience of judging, we can open ourselves to all kinds of possibilities. And the most important possibility is one of really embracing life and embracing others.
Yes, and when we are judgmental, and we don't need to be, it means that we're not really minding our own business. We're not sticking to what it is that we're supposed to be putting our attention to. Because it's just like in the workplace, everyone has a certain position, and it's up to each person then to be responsible for those specific ones. And if others try to interfere, and they don't know the game plan, they don't know what's really the overall plan, then they just make a muddle of things. So it's a lot of people say, well, just mind your own business. And that's not being rude to say that, because if we each do what we're supposed to do and take care of our own area of work, then others will then have that opportunity to do it themselves. And it's just like in the home place, when we are overly judgmental of others in the home, then it makes the energy go down instead of go up, doesn't it?
Very important aspect, because judgment takes a lot of energy and it drains us of a lot of energy. And of course, in counseling, so often we see people and talk to people about and hear so often that they're so tired and that they're so weary. And it is often judgment, and it is often the negativity that weighs upon one that is really draining. And yet, letting go of judgment and letting go of the expectations even, and that goes counter to what many of us have been taught. And of course, one of the things we in metaphysics believe and in New Thought believe is we expect good, and we also look beyond the appearances. We look beyond the surface of what people say or what people do or what events are presenting, and we know that in the midst of wherever we are, circumstances are really working out as they should. And if we would let go of the judgment of others, and later we'll talk about judgment of ourselves. We have that problem too, because we judge ourselves. And many of us have that judgment issue from childhood, where we have judged our own behavior and our own worthiness or unworthiness to either be successful or to be lovable or to have certain aspects of a prosperous and happy life. And in that, we really program ourselves for failure.
That's so true, and it's so treacherous, because we don't realize what we're doing when we do that, if we're the type of person who is judgmental, because we think we're helping society or family or work or whatever it is. But if we just think twice before being judgmental, we can see that there's always various reasons, there's extenuating circumstances. And then if we don't know all of that, then we wouldn't know how to judge. So we're so much, and you mentioned the importance of conserving our energy. Well, we're so much better off in conserving our own energy when we don't try to figure out everything for everyone, only that which we're asked to do.
And that issue of vitality and energy, we do have the capacity to have the energy that we need and the enthusiasm and the joy that we need to have in life if we would let go of these negative aspects of our personality, and certainly judgment is one of them.
Yes, and any of those negatives drag us down and creates a blackness in our own energy source and energy level. And so when we're really doing ourselves a very grave disfavor when we are being judgmental. And then when we listen to the other people being judgmental, then we're not doing them a favor either, because we need to encourage people to not be judgmental, as opposed to listening and sympathizing, but to try and help them see that they don't need to be concerned in that way, because 9 times out of 10, that's true. Those people who are judgmental are not being productive as they might be.
And we ourselves are not being as productive as we might be, because in our own judgment of ourselves and judgment of others and judgment of circumstances and situations, we create this stoppage, really, of energy, and actually stop creativity and stop the receptivity that we have of positive ideas and of even the ability of others to embrace us and to like being around us. One of the things that happens so often with negative people or judgmental people is people don't want to be around them. And then, of course, people will often say, well, I don't understand why people don't want to be around me, or I don't understand why I'm so tired.
If we just stop and think, we can see why that is. And when we create situations or allow others to create those situations, then the adage is, love thy neighbor as thyself. So we're not loving our neighbor as ourselves, or perhaps we are. And as you were saying, perhaps we're not loving ourselves enough and doing ourselves a disfavor. But I think everyone needs to look at our lives and see how judgmental we're being. And unfortunately, too often parents are that way. And when I look back when my own children were small, I said don't too many times, and can't too many times. And I think many parents do that. So we need to look at our lives, whatever it is we're doing, whether we're parenting, working in the public, whatever it is we're doing, we need to examine our own lives and see, are we doing that? And if we are, then we need to make a new agenda.
With children, I think another story that you've heard me talk about so many times in my lectures and talks is a number of years ago I saw a child in a park playing, and across his T-shirt it said, "My name is No-No," because of course his parents and his grandparents and his family and his circle of loved ones were saying no more than they were saying anything else. And as we create that thought process within young people and within children. Or the other thing that happens, I think, as we're talking about young people, especially in the home environment or in school, in church, in social activities, we really need to be mindful of the fact that as adults, of course, some of us aren't truly adults in our actions, but as adults, as we begin to have dialogue one with another in a judgmental way in the presence of children and young people, they observe our behavior, and they begin to see our behavior, and they model their behavior after our behavior. And sadly, many children believe that judgment and being negative is a part of being adult. And many people do grow up into adolescence and into adulthood believing that they really have an obligation and that it's a rite of passage to be judgmental, and that when you get older, or when we get older, we should be and we are judgmental or we are negative. And that's not the case at all, because that creates again, an energy drain. It creates a stoppage of creativity, and it also is a method of causing our thought process to operate in a certain way. And of course, we spend a lot of time talking about the fact that it's important what we think, because what we think determines how we feel, and that directs how we act and react to circumstances and situations. And so often, even if we don't judge and speak about it, but if we judge in our own minds or our own hearts, we are creating that energy drain and that negativity, aren't we?
Yes, we are. And too often we're totally judgmental instead of being instructive or constructive. And as you were speaking, I was thinking of my little 3-year-old grandson. One day, one day this week, he surprised me when I said, "Colton, you should not be doing that." And he said, "Shh." And I thought that was pretty clever of him, because he knew I would laugh. But they learn very quickly. But I think that if I'd been terribly judgmental toward him, it would have crushed him. And children are so sensitive, and sometimes we desensitize them by being overly harsh with them in our judgmental attitude. And then they learn to be that way too, and they're that way then on the playground. And I think today's parents are wonderful, that most of them are very advanced in the way they treat their children, as opposed to how we used to a number of years ago. We thought we had to be more harsh. We thought we had to say no too many times. And now the children are being allowed to be more creatively themselves. And that's a very good thing. But still, all parents and we all need to review how we react in our sphere of wherever we are, and to see if we're being judgmental or if we're not.
That issue of introspection is so very important. It's important from a spiritual standpoint. It's important from a psychological standpoint for us to look at ourselves and look at our behavior and our thinking, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And we've been leading meditation groups for many, many years. And I know that you teach, and I do too, to have a time of introspection in the evening. It's good to have a morning meditation. It's good to have a meditation later in the day and in the evening, but it's especially good to have retrospection the last thing at night, and just see what we've done that we ought not to have done in our own mind, and not to beat up on ourselves, but to just see how we would have done it differently. And if we do that every evening, then we're more apt to be more gentle, thoughtful, and kind toward others forthcoming days.
And we're able to rest and sleep better.
Yes, that's true. That's true, because it's as if, we've forgiven ourselves when we go through that ritual of introspection. And forgiveness is a very interesting subject in itself, and it fits in with not being judgmental, because if we can forgive others easily, then we're less apt to be harshly judgmental, aren't we?
Absolutely. And we need to judge less, we need to love more, we need to have more energy, more vitality, and be positive and affirmative. We'd like to pause at this point in the program and offer you the opportunity to receive some literature so that you can continue to study the ideas and concepts that we're sharing with you.
We would like to offer you the opportunity to receive one of these free booklets to further your understanding of the new thought message of confident living. Each month we will feature a different booklet, which will be mailed to you free and postage paid. Simply address your request to Confident Living at P.O. Box 7726, Long Beach, California, 90807.
In the second half of the program, let's talk about some practical ways that people can deal with letting go of judgment. I think we all judge at different levels, some of us less than others, but it is a constant work, both from a psychological standpoint and a spiritual standpoint, to let go and release judgment. But what are some practical ways in which we can give up judgment? Let's just take for example, if someone has hurt us through the spoken word, say they have insulted us or they have upset us, how would you say we would do well to begin the process of healing that judgment, healing that issue of judgment?
Well, first of all, we have to not be feeling harshly toward the person, so we can be gentle in our thoughts about them. And it's not exactly making excuses for them, but seeing where they're coming from and why they're doing what they do. Because if we can see where other people are coming from, then we're less apt to feel harshly toward them. And it's just like if we have a workman or woman doing work for us in our homes or in our business, then if we see if we figure out why they're acting the way they do, if it's unpleasant to us, then we're more apt to be able to forgive them. And also we can overlook a lot, because very often things don't really matter. If it's in business, then it matters. If it's the bottom line in business is service, and then being paid for that service. If it affects what the basic business itself, then we need to have policy, and then we have to have people follow the policy. And if it's in the home, then those parents need to do that too, and let the children know what they can and can't do. And so we have to set rules and policy, but it's not set in stone. Everything can be changed.
And that's important. It isn't set in stone, and it is a process. If we can understand where people are coming from and empathize with people, very often that's helpful. And certainly we try to do that all the time. But if we can't, then we need often just to say it's all right not to not understand why they're doing it, but just to let them be and not allow them to have control over the way that we are reacting to them, and we can see beyond the appearance of what they've said or what they've done, because so often people have so many things in their lives that we'll never know about and that we should maybe never know about, but we need to understand the fact that people behave in a variety of ways because of their life experience. Buckminster Fuller was one who said some of us are less damaged than others, and whether we're damaged in childhood or we're damaged in adulthood, whether it's stress-induced, very often it's from a variety of sources, and we just need to be willing to let people be the way they are and expect them to let us be the way that we are, and to let them go without judgment.
Yes, and let them go without judgment. But if we're in the position where we have to train them, teach them, or guide them, then to let them know in a gentle way that it could be done a different way. And also, if it's something that would be ongoing, then it would be wise to ask the person, oh, why did you think to do it that way? Or what were you thinking when you did it like that? But not accusing, but to try and understand. And perhaps there's a good reason for that, and perhaps policies need to be changed and rules need to be changed. And not all children need the same harsh rules or gentle rules. They have to be, the rules need to be a little different for various children. Or in business, it's the same idea. So if we understand more fully where the other person is coming from, then we're more thoughtful and gentle and kind toward them. And most people want to be accepted. Most people want to do a good job. Most people are eager to please, but they get frustrated because they don't know where the other person is coming from. So we have to have things made clear. And if it's our duty to have it made clear, then it's our obligation to do it that way, isn't it?
It is. And then in just the last few minutes that we have, let's just touch on not judging the events that are going on in the world. We judge events and we judge behavior. And of course, I'm not talking about staying out of politics. I'm not talking about not being active. I'm not talking about not taking a stand. But I'm talking about people who judge the fact that this is a bad time. So often in my counseling and in your counseling work, I know you experience the same situation where people come to us and say, things are just so bad today. Things are so awful. It's so terrible. And so the whole environment, not judging and to be willing to give up judgment of circumstances and situations and to do what we can do in a positive and affirmative way, to state our beliefs and to stand by our beliefs, but to respect and allow others to stand by theirs as well, and not judge the times as being bad, because really, these are the good old days of tomorrow. And we need to understand that, don't we?
Exactly. And I think I've mentioned before, my dad one time said, don't let anyone tell you the good old days were some time ago. We're living in the good old days. This is what you just said. And he was 92 years old, and he used to say, the longer I live, the less I know. Mm-hmm. But he knew that. And we all need to observe that we are living in a wonderful time. And of course, regardless of what time we're living in, things are sometimes unpleasant. Very often we don't understand what's happening. And I do the past life therapy work, and when people go back to other lives, it's rare they ever have a better life than they're having in this lifetime. And that's when we look back in history, we can see that same thing is true. Times were tough, and times were rough, and luxuries were scarce for most people. So it was, when we look back in time, we can see how every increment of our time has improved our life conditions. But sometimes we forget that, don't we?
We do, and we judge, and we judge, and we judge. And we choose to judge in a negative way, and a lot of that has to do with conditioning. And we can learn, just as many of us have learned to be negative and learned to judge in a negative way, we can relearn our thought process. We can teach our thought process, and we do that through guided imagery, through self-talk, through counseling, through self-evaluation, through introspection, through counseling, through surrounding ourselves with positive and affirmative people, through a myriad of sources and ways in which we educate ourselves. And if we find ourselves to be judging the times and the circumstances and our lives in a negative way, then we need to sometimes make a change. But what we really need to do, more than making a change in our life, although that's often the thing that has to be done, we need to change the way that we're thinking, and we can recondition our way of thinking, can't we?
Yes, and we can revamp our faith, because if we have faith in humankind, faith in life and conditions, then we're not going to be as judgmental as if we're pessimistic and less than optimistic. So we can just be optimistic about all of life and know that when things seem to be bad, there's always something good happening at the same time, and that we're living in a time of great change. And because we're living in a time of great change, we can expect that these things are going to be happening, and then know that they're for the best, mm-hmm. and know that things will be better. Mm-hmm. And so if we have an optimistic outlook on life, if we have faith in the divine and in the goodness of life itself and goodness of God, then we will be less apt to be judgmental, because if we're serenely happy, we're not going to be judgmental.
Mm-hmm. And that's the core of what New Thought metaphysical philosophy is all about, and that is we don't proselytize, and that's an important issue. We never talk about anyone changing their faith or their tradition. We talk about people seeing the most positive and affirmative within their own tradition and within their own faith and within their own own process of life. And that in and of itself is letting go of judgment, isn't it? Because so often we find religion, we find psychology, we find counseling, we find education, we find all of these things to be very judgmental. And one of the things that we believe is that as we let go of those judgments and we accept others and we allow the universal consciousness to be aware and to be one, then positive and affirmative things begin to happen. And we stop judging, and we stop talking about what separates us, and we start talking about what joins us together as people.
Yes, and we are much happier. The people around us are much happier. And productivity in whatever area we are is much higher because everyone is thoughtful and gentle toward each other. And when we are, it makes life ever so much better. And we, as you said earlier, we sleep better at night.
Yeah, and we have energy and vitality, and we stop the drain, and the drain is what we need to stop. We need to stop that energy drain. We need to stop the problem of really wearing ourselves out, because it takes a whole lot of energy to be judgmental. I just, you know, when I talk to people, I tell them that all the time. It just takes so much energy to be judgmental. I wouldn't have the energy to do what they do in terms of wearing down my energy and vitality, when in fact, if we let go of judgment, we can be vital and we can be alive and we can thrive in a positive way, and we have seemingly limitless energy, and we don't get tired, and we sleep well, and we're healthier, and we're happier, and we're better adjusted people, aren't we?
Yes, and it always goes back to mass consciousness or the global brain, where one person can just start, like we sing that song in church, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. Well, if one person is more peaceful, and therefore less judgmental, then it affects others, and we're all one, essentially. And as we are all one, what one person does affects everyone. And if more than 50% of the people are happy and optimistic, then it's there we are. It's a wonderful life.
Yes, and it is a grand and wonderful life. And so we're out of time, and we hope that the information that we've shared with you has been useful, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Mike and Iris would like to extend a cordial invitation for you to join them this Sunday morning at 11 a.m. for our weekly celebration service at the beautiful Seaport Marina Hotel at the corner of Pacific Coast Highway and 2nd Street, adjacent to the Marina Pacifica and Marketplace shopping centers. There will be a guided meditation, prayers, spirited music, and a dynamic, life-changing New Thought message. Please join us this Sunday. You will be warmly welcomed into the company of like-minded, positive, and uplifting people. And remember, whatever your dream, whatever your vision, you can attain it through confident living.